Canada's Drag Race went freaking ham on this most recent episode, changing assets, making references across the board, seemingly asking the contestants to dress in theme for their workroom entrances. This was a fabulous episode aesthetically and conceptually. The question is, was it executed well? Hello everyone, welcome in. My name is Jer, and we are talking Canada's Drag Race Season 5, Episode 5. This is the one where they went 90s. I love this Friends reference. The nostalgia kick is strong right now. People are reverting back to 80s, 90s fashion, and TV shows, and reboots, and movies, and music, and bringing a lot of that back. And I love that there is a resurgence of this particular time period. I now understand why my Gen X parents were freaking out in the early 2000s when people my age were bringing back a lot of 70s and 80s fashion. Fashion history repeats itself, and I love that we are starting to see that in culture. And now Drag Race has understood that and is picking up the ball. I loved the 90s sound quality, video quality intro, and I love that they even did that title card that said what the episode name was. And I want to know why they don't do that more often. Like, they don't have to necessarily change the assets of the intro. They could literally do such a small title card that says what the episode title is. And if you noticed and caught it, even the director names and the producer names and the cast names were all adjusted into a different font and color than normal. And the confessional nameplates were even adjusted for this episode. Later on, there's even a bouncing maple leaf over a 90s soda cup background style. So speaking on last week, a lot of y'all are just not liking this season. You're not liking the execution or the challenges, and I'm seeing that not only in my comments here, but across the internet as well. And I don't know what gives, because I am loving the way that this season has been constructed so far. There's been a couple mechanical tweaks that I would love to see adjusted, but more than anything, what I like is this departure from form. I like when Drag Race does a challenge that it's done before but does a little twist on it, sees if it likes it, and then maybe makes an adjustment the next year. And we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing even that happen in the Versus the World franchise where they changed Snatch Game to Snatch Game the Rusical. And I liked combining those challenges. It makes it a little more difficult for these people who are quasi all-stars. And I think adjusting the format of the show is healthy for it so it doesn't get stagnant. A lot of my problems with Drag Race Thailand Season 3 right now, as well as a lot of past Drag Race seasons, is that it's just stale and dull. And I don't need them to bust out everything in the book, but I would like them to look at a challenge and give it a little tweak. Doing a girl group theme where it's not a introduce yourself, get to know you, tell us a silly verse about who you are. Some stupid hokey pokey, I'm so-and-so, gonna give you the clap, go get your STIs checked, watch your back, don't blink, I'm gonna steal the crown. Nonsense that they do every year. And so I'm glad that we're getting something a little bit different. I like these themed verses. Tracy Melchor is the one who introduces the challenge this week. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, my favorite thing about Canada's Drag Race is their ability to allow the side judge panel to introduce the challenges to be a part of that format so that it's not just all the power on Brooke. Tracy looked amazing in this denim, and I loved this light brown hair on her and those boots. Mama, those boots were so hot. I would live in those boots if I owned them. And there have been a lot of great boots on Drag Race, but those glittery boots were like everything to me. The mini challenge is to describe 90s items, and this reminded me a lot of that season 10 challenge where they had to sit on stuff and try and figure out what it was that they were sitting on and describe it. I like these types of challenges because they're just silly. It's a fun way to express your personality and your brand through the unfamiliar. So the person that did that the best, in my opinion, was Uma. And she did in fact win that challenge because she was so good at selling herself in that. And Uma's a comedy queen. Uma's a silly, goofy girl. She was able to properly sell herself and brand herself in this challenge, and that's really what it's about. However, this challenge really scared me because it's about improv and it's about being on your feet. And last year, when we did a improv QVC challenge and when we did that improv movie star challenge where they had to do it with Tracy does a lot of improv challenges, doesn't she? Melinda Verga was the only one who killed it in that movie challenge, and Melinda Verga really killed it in the QVC challenge. And in a parallel manner, Melinda Verga was the one who did the best at Snatch Game, where a lot of people were just fine, if not kind of not fine. Venus, of course, did great. But we're not talking about the one other standout of the week. I'm talking about the one who made the biggest impact in both of these big improv challenges and then did Snatch Game well. And on that flip side, a lot of the contestants did bad in QVC and in that movie acting challenge, and also did bad in Snatch Game. So it worries me that next week is gonna be top tier levels of unwatchable cringe or just blah. It could go either way. I do want to give a very quick shout out to that extremely cute pit crew member they had this week. He looked delicious, and I'm available for smooching if he wants to smooch. The Maxi Challenge is girl groups, and they just call dibs on who they want to work with, which I was surprised that they didn't give Uma the power to choose her team. She does, however, get to choose the song choice, which I think was something. Our teams are Uma, Jaylene, Minnie, and Helena. And initially I thought, this is not gonna be the best group. And our second team is Xana, Virgo, Michaela, and Perla. And there was a lot of story tension written on both sides on who was gonna do well and who was gonna do bad. And it was kind of a big misdirect, at least from my opinion. There are two songs, Duh, which is a more upbeat, positive vibe song, and Not, which is a shadier song. You know what? My wires are starting to get really badly crossed. After this episode, I also watched Drag Race UK Season 3, the Girl Group Challenge, and things are starting to get lost up here. I almost just talked about Crystal Versace in this challenge. Jesus. There's too much Drag Race! Virgo is stupid talented at vocals. So let's talk about the groups really quickly. Our Duh group looked super fun in their iridescent jackets. I wonder if they made those or if they were provided to them by the art department. In either case, I really enjoyed them. They had a fun Spice Girls vibe. I think aesthetically they looked my favorite, and they looked the most like 90s. And there's a really big distinction between them and Not, in my opinion. Helena was a lot of fun to watch, or at least I thought so. I was kind of surprised she was in the bottom. And Uma's line, "Then we kissed just as friends." Oh my god, are we lesbians? Wow. I gotta call my mom. Period. That was the funniest, most interesting line I have ever heard on Drag Race. That is gonna live up here and take over space in my brain meat. I don't think I've heard anything that good since Release the Beast Bimini. And you know what? I'm gonna say, with the oversaturation of Drag Race, with how many girl group challenges we've had, there's almost nothing that lives up here anymore. I can recite I'm That Bitch from season 12 from start to finish. I can recite Bing Bang Bong, the United King Dolls version, from start to finish. I can recite Break Up Bye Bye, Davina's group, from start to finish. I've got a little bit of Queens Down Under up here, but only the hook. I don't remember a lot of these girls' verses because they don't stick, they're not memorable, there's just too many of them. And they don't have enough time to express themselves or share their meaning too well. This line is gonna stay up here. That was so good. Sorry, I'm such a stan of Umagod. I thought this group was really fun. What I remember about the 90s was infused with fun. It wasn't really about strong dancing or cohesiveness or choreography. In my opinion, that was very indicative of the early 2000s. We really started leaning in on that at that point. Whereas the 90s was really about having personality. It was about sharing your brand as your distinct flavor in that group if you were in one. Britney is a fine dancer, but she wasn't the sharpest dancer in the world. It was really about her girl next door energy. The Backstreet Boys were pretty strong dancers, but even then it was really about who they were and selling their character in front of the camera. A lot of the divas in the 90s were really focused on presenting them, and I thought this group did that. So let's talk about the Not group. First off, I think the BMX looks kind of threw everything off for me. I don't know if this was what they provided or if this is what the art department gave them. For me, BMX is very 90s, but it feels a little more on the later side of it rather than the overall 90s. Their looks read a little more early 2000s to me, like 2002, 2004, around there. And I don't know, I think just cohesively, they looked like they were in a different era, where the first group, if I were to look at them, I would say 90s. But the second group, I would look at them and say 2000s. And aesthetics do have a big part in a girl group dynamicism, in my opinion. Virgo was really the only one who was giving me strong, powerful 90s. But like, she was really the only one. She had the energy and the personality. She had the vibe. And that's really what the 90s was about, was of the vibe. Their performances were really staunchly dated into the 2000s. They were sharper with their choreography and their movements and their lyrics. They didn't have as many defined characters. And I thought of them lacked a lot of that personality that I was looking for. So I think, what is this girl group being judged on? Is it being judged on how close you stuck to the category, or is it how cohesive and strong you were? Because if I'm looking at them objectively, I would think that the one that stuck closer to the assignment would be the one that got it. This week, I feel like it was maybe judged differently. I'm not sure. Our runway category is grunge and glamour. I'm gonna be so real, the grunge scene is not really my thing, so I don't have a lot of information or any reference points to really dive into these. So talking about them very briefly, my gripe is that Perla wore the same earrings in the challenge and on the runway, and they're great earrings, but I remember there was one time in season 8 they got on and maybe Acid Betty for wearing the same boots in the challenge and on the runway. It could have been Chi-Chi. That is a personal gripe of mine, is reusing things in the same episode. Jocelyn Fox wearing that same necklace in challenge 1 and then challenge 3 and then challenge 8. That's fine because they were in different episodes, but don't wear the same thing in your challenge and in your runway, for me. Xana did a Buffy inspo and I thought it was fun. Michaela did a little Kim inspo and I thought she definitely looked the part. Uma did a Courtney Love inspo and she looked so greasy and grungy to me. This was one of my favorite looks of the night. Helena feels like this runway was built for her and kind of feel like she dropped the ball a bit. And I thought Jaylene looked in theme. I loved the realness of it all. Then Minnie knocked it out of the park for me. I loved what Virgo was wearing. I thought it was very glam. And the hair, to me, was giving very 90s Queen Latifah vibes. Uma and Minnie are called as safe, and I thought that was a bit crazy, considering how good their looks and performances were, especially Uma, who I feel like should have been top 3. And our tops were Virgo, Perla, and Michaela. I feel like Perla should have probably been switched with Uma. And our bottoms are Xana, Jaylene, and Helena. I think I understood why Helena and Jaylene were there, because I really don't know who else I would put in the bottom. We're at a hard part in the competition right now because everyone is so strong and good. It's gonna get even muddier to try and figure out who objectively did bad and who did safe. Passable. And on top of it, everyone got really good critiques. So that made it even more complicated to figure out who should go home. Michaela was the winner, and I don't know if I totally agreed with this. I think if it was between them, Virgo was stronger and had a better look in the challenge, where Michaela looked like she was about to get on a motorcycle and go bike off of dunes or something. So then when everyone goes back, Uma and Minnie were chatting about who they thought was going to be in the bottom and the top. And much like me, it's kind of hard to figure out where everyone should go because everyone's so good. How do you determine who's objectively bad? Helena and Jaylene were the weakest in the group probably. So then who else is bottom 3? It could be anyone, where some people seem like they should be in the top. Like Virgo clearly is top. Perla could land anywhere. Michaela could land anywhere. And Xana could land anywhere. So then you have to kind of tailor it by your own personal taste on where you think everyone's gonna go. And Michaela got real in her feelings about this. And there's some friction that happens between her and Uma. And this is absolutely going to explode into next week. Because in the trailer for next week, they showed what looked to be Uma in an alien look. And if y'all remember back from the promo, the alien look is when it seems like Virgo and Michaela get into it with someone. And Michaela screams, "I'm done, I'm out," and leaves. So this is gonna be crazy, whatever happens next. I've been saying all season, these girls don't like each other. And it is so clear they don't like each other. Or at the very least, they are grinding each other's gears if they do like each other. Whatever's coming out in the competition is not rubbing them right, and you could see that sparks are about to fly. And I'm ready for it. Michaela decides to save Helena, which makes sense. She hasn't landed in the bottom up until this point. I don't know, I think I probably would have saved Jaylene just because I feel like she would obviously not make it through this kind of lip sync. The song is Here Comes the Sunshine, and in my opinion, this was a really toned down lip sync. They were restrained and reserved and didn't quite serve what I wanted to see. It was high energy and neither one of them really gave that. And the rhythm was quite stiff. I do appreciate that Xana was hiking up her dress to try and get some movement, but it still was a little lifeless of a performance, unfortunately. Xana wins, which makes sense to me. I don't think Jaylene was turning it as hard, but it's sad because I really liked her and I didn't want to see her go this soon. But it's kind of the same time that I think Kit and Caboodle went home. So I'm not totally surprised that an older contestant got knocked out in the midpoint of the competition. So next up is Snatch Game, which I am extremely nervous about. I'm excited to see the blow up. And there's something called a wooden beaver, which again, referencing the promo, Brooke mentions that the judges typically choose the bottom 3, but for some challenge, the contestants are going to choose the bottom 3. So I'm wondering if that's what's going to cause that blow up. That maybe everybody decides that Michaela was the worst one in the Snatch game, and I'll vote for her to be in the bottom, and she loses it. Maybe Michaela follows after her mother and leaves the competition. I don't know. I'm excited to see. What did y'all think about this episode? What did you think about the challenge and the execution? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see y'all on the flip.